For 41 nights, Callie Marsh slept through the alarm she set for 2 a.m. The alarm was meaningless. Exhaustion has its own gravity when you're 7 weeks postpartum and your husband works nights and the nearest family is 4 states away. Her body simply refused. Honey never did. Before you decide what kind of story this is, know this. 3 weeks after the night everything changed, Callie framed a photograph. Not something sweet or posed or carefully lit. It was a blurry, half-dark photo taken from the hallway at 2:11 a.m. on a Thursday in November, her hands still shaking. In it, Honey, their 2-year-old golden retriever, was lying on the gray couch, her broad chest rising and falling slowly, her chin resting on 7-week-old Owen's head, as if she'd been placed there by God himself. Callie framed it because it was evidence. Evidence of 41 nights she'd slept through the alarm, and the one night she hadn't. Because Honey made sure of it. Owen arrived in late September, healthy and pink and absolutely furious about being born. By Wednesday evening, Callie was home on the gray couch with the baby sleeping on her chest, Honey's warm weight pressed against her legs, and the particular silence of a life that had just fundamentally changed. The first strange thing happened 4 days later. She'd gotten up at 4 a.m. for Owen's feeding and felt dizzy crossing the hallway. Not spin-the-room dizzy. Just an odd, sliding sensation, like the floor wasn't quite where she expected it to be. She braced against the wall, breathed through it, told herself it was exhaustion. Because of course it was exhaustion. She had a 4-day-old. Honey watched her from the hallway. Before the baby, Honey had been an enthusiastic, cheerful dog, the kind other owners described as easy. But in the week after Owen came home, something had shifted. She'd become quieter, more deliberate. She stopped sleeping in her bed in the corner and positioned herself near whatever surface Owen was sleeping on. Not hovering, not anxious, just present, watchful, the way a good nurse watches a patient. She wasn't looking at Owen the way you looked at something you loved. She was looking at him the way you looked at something you were trying to understand. Week 3 brought the thirst. Callie was drinking more water than seemed normal, refilling her large bottle 3-4 times a day, and the fatigue felt different, heavier, more fundamental, like it was coming from somewhere deep rather than the surface. She mentioned it to her OB at the 6-week check. "You're breastfeeding," the doctor said, not unkindly. "You need significantly more water. The fatigue. You have a 6-week-old. That's the explanation." It was the explanation. It made complete sense. What Callie noticed only later, looking back, Honey had begun doing something new around week 3. She would sit beside Callie while she drank and press her nose, briefly and firmly, against Callie's hand. Not begging, not nudging for attention. Just checking, the way you'd press the back of your hand to a child's forehead. A quick, deliberate assessment. "You're so weird," Callie told her. Such a weird, sweet dog. Honey accepted the ear scratch and went back to the couch where Owen was sleeping. On the 41st night, Callie went to bed at 9:47 p.m. Owen had eaten at 9:30. She set the alarm for 2 o'clock, just in case. She was asleep by 9:51. What happened at 1:58 a.m. depends on which version you tell. The simple version, Honey woke her. The fuller version, Honey had been awake for some time. The pillow from the couch was on the floor. Her water bowl was disturbed. She had been moving, unsettled, deciding something. What she decided was this. She walked down the hallway and put her cold nose directly against Callie's cheek. "Honey." Honey made a sound that wasn't quite a whine, a single compressed note. Then she put her paw on the bed and pushed. Not hard, not aggressively, just pressure, insistent and deliberate. Callie sat up. The room felt slightly odd. She reached for the crackers on the nightstand and realized her hand was trembling. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I'm up." She followed Honey to the living room. Owen was sleeping on the couch, his tiny chest rising and falling with that absolute perfection she'd been watching for 7 weeks. She sat beside him and ate the crackers. Honey put her head in Callie's lap. Then Callie noticed something she'd never specifically noticed before. Owen, asleep, smelled slightly different. Not wrong, exactly. Just a faint sweetness that wasn't his usual clean soap and milk scent. Almost fruity, like the edge of something fermented. She bent closer, breathed in, frowned. She looked at Honey, who was watching her with that calm, deliberate attention. "What is that?" she whispered. At 3:15, she texted her mother. "Does a baby's breath ever smell slightly sweet? Like fruit? Is that normal?" Her mother responded 11 minutes later. "That can be a sign of low blood sugar in infants. I'd call the pediatric nurse line just to be safe." The nurse asked about Owen's feeding patterns, his color, his alertness. Everything sounded normal. Then, almost as an aside, "Is Callie herself feeling well?" "Tired," Callie said. "I have a 7-week-old. Thirsty?" Something caught in her chest. "Yes, actually." "Headaches? Blurred vision?" A pause. "Yes." The nurse's tone didn't change, but it sharpened. "Call your own doctor when they open. Owen sounds fine, but some of what you're describing in yourself warrants a check." The pediatrician saw Owen at 9 the next morning. Perfectly healthy. The slight sweet smell the doctor theorized was likely from breast milk composition. Nothing concerning. Callie's doctor saw her at 10:30. A blood draw. A finger stick. The doctor returning to the room with an expression carefully arranged to be calm. "Your blood glucose is significantly elevated, based on what you've described. The thirst, the fatigue, the headaches, the shakiness at night. I think we're looking at type 1 diabetes, late onset, sometimes triggered by pregnancy." The room did something strange. It didn't spin. It just rearranged itself, the way rooms do when information lands that changes the shape of everything. "The shakiness at night," Callie said slowly. "That was my blood sugar dropping?" "Almost certainly. You were treating it instinctively, the crackers, the water. But if you'd been sleeping through those drops consistently—" The doctor paused. "Severe hypoglycemia during sleep can be dangerous." Callie thought about 41 nights of sleeping through the alarm. She thought about the one night she hadn't, because something cold had pressed against her cheek and a paw had pushed her awake. The research, when she found it later, was both clinical and astonishing. Dogs detect blood glucose changes through volatile organic compounds in human breath, chemical markers that shift measurably when blood sugar drops. Trained diabetic alert dogs can detect hypoglycemia up to 30 minutes before symptoms appear. Honey had not been trained. She had simply been paying attention to the woman who fed her, who slept beside her, who had brought home a small creature wrapped in white. Somewhere in 41 nights, she had assembled a pattern Callie hadn't been awake enough to see. The sweet smell Callie noticed on Owen's breath that night hadn't been Owen's. The compounds were in the air around Callie. Honey had known. Honey had known for weeks. Callie started insulin. She got a continuous glucose monitor. She bought Honey the most expensive dog bed she could find, which Honey accepted with characteristic grace, before choosing to sleep on the couch anyway. Owen is 8 months old now, pulling himself upright against whatever surface is nearest, frequently Honey's patient, sturdy side. Honey endures this with the same watchful stillness she has brought to everything since the moment he came home. She's still listening, still assessing, still paying a quality of attention that Callie used to think was sweetness, and now understands is something more serious, something closer to love, if love were a medical instrument, something closer to devotion, if devotion had a nose that could smell what was wrong before the wrong became irreversible. There's a photograph on the wall above the couch. It's blurry. The lighting is bad, a large golden shape and a small white shape, and the 2 a.m., darkness around them, and a dog's chin resting on a baby's head with the weightless certainty of someone who has decided, without ambiguity, that this is where they belong. The clues were all there from the very first week. The pressed nose against her hand, the position by the couch, the watchfulness that didn't look like anxiety and didn't look like affection, and was, in fact, something more precise than either. Did you see them? Or did you, like Callie, look at a golden retriever on a gray couch and see only what you expected to see? Tonight, if your dog is watching you with that particular careful attention, maybe don't dismiss it. They usually know before we do. Subscribe to Loyalty Tales. More stories are waiting, sir.